What's up, everyone? Frank here, Godzilla Island for the Maziveverse Squad. Really excited to finally be reviewing Radiant Black. This is what you will consider year one. We have volume 1 and volume 2. Now, I'm not going to go page by page like I normally do for comic reviews because these are large books. These are volumes. Each book contains 6 issues. So this is issues 1 through 12 of Radiant Black. Volume 1 is called Not So Secret Origin, and Volume 2 is called Team Up. As you can hear, spoiler, there's other Radiants. But the series has been out 3 years now. It just recently celebrated its 3-year anniversary, the creation of the Massiveverse. This is an incredible series. I mean, I'm just getting into it, but the volume 1, the twist that they threw at you in this first volume, just mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. The story follows Nathan Burnett. He is a struggling / failed writer. He has to return home. He's absolutely broke. He's going back to his hometown to live with his parents. There, he meets up with his friend Marshal Ward, longtime childhood friend. And he's like, welcome back to town. Let's go out for a night of drinking. So they go out to the bars. Marshal's just there helping Nathan drink his sorrows away. He's kind of like, why are you so broke? What happened? Where did it go wrong? And Nathan, pretty much all he did was make a short story that was a hit. But then after that, he could just not produce a full-length story. He's been trying to make a full-length story based on that short story for years. And he's just struggling. And we see that struggle with him trying to work on that story throughout Volume 1. So after that night of drinking, they decided they're going to call it a night. They're walking home from the bar. Marshall is absolutely blasted. They're just walking down the train tracks when they see a black hole sort of floating in the air. Mini black hole. Looks sort of like the Radiant Black logo here. And they're kind of like, what is that thing? And Nathan reaches out drunkenly and touches it. Now, if I saw a black hole, I don't think I would touch it. But, you know, the two of them are drunk. They go out. He goes out. He touches it. And he instantly becomes transformed into Radiant Black. And the suit just appears all over him. And he's drunk. You find out he had puked through the helmet. And it's not really a helmet. Who knows what it is, really? It's just almost like a field around them. I don't know how to explain the suits quite yet. We're still in there early, but it's almost like it's not there, the helmet. It's, I don't know if it's nanotechnology or what. There is robots involved with this series, as we see. There's this mysterious robot that Nathan keeps having visions of throughout Volume 1. And the cops seem to appear on the scene. They're like, get off the tracks, you two drunks. And Marshall, being drunk and apparently not liking the cops much, begins cursing him out, telling him to screw off. And a train begins to come while they're standing in the middle of the tracks. And Nathan's like, I think we should get out of here. I don't understand why you're fighting with these cops. And he just continues arguing and almost just ignoring the train. That's when the train's about to hit. Nathan lifts the train up with his powers and lowers it back down. And he also lifts it up along with the cops and says, hey, let me go. And Marshall's like, he just lifted a train. What do you think he could do to you guys? And the cops are like, yeah, just go get out of here. So a few days later, the cops track Marshall down at his video store where he works. And they're like, hey, we need to know where your friend is. And sure enough, Marshall just takes him straight to his house. And it turns out there is another Radiant Red, who has been robbing banks. And we find out that Radiant Red is Satomi Sone. She's an Asian American middle school teacher. She gets her issue all the way at the end in issue 6 in Volume 1. But her and Nathan face off. You'd think she's like an evil one at first, but once you see her story in Volume 6, you find out that she's not terrible. She's just in a bit of a bad situation that kind of pushed her finger to do things. So here's comes the spoiler for Volume 1. This is a really big twist if you're a new reader, you might want to skip ahead a few seconds. But after their first meeting, Nathan stops Radiant Red's robbery of a bank. He takes the money, returns it to where the cops are investigating it. And during that whole process, she had stolen his car that he tracked her down with, and she found some mail in his car. And she took his mail and tracked him back to where he lives in his small town in Illinois. And she confronts him to try to scare him off, to be like, listen, leave me alone. And we found out her powers are, she can absorb mass, so she can absorb materials and different things, and she bulks up. So they assumed actually that the Radiant Red was a guy, because during the first meeting, she was big and bulky. But it's just the more she absorbs, the stronger and bigger she gets. So the two of them are fighting it out, and it's causing a lot of collateral damage in town. And it gets to a point where they're both inside a building that's about to fall. Nathan's holding it up with his gravity powers, and everyone's escaping, and he tells her to get out so that she can make sure that other people are safe and that she's safe. And that's when she realizes she's messed up. Nathan's powers give out, the building collapse, and Marshall, his good friends, digging throughout the rubble. Sorry, guys. To find Nathan. And the radiant that controls him, his powers, says that he is no longer alive. And it transfers to Marshall. And it turns out Nathan is alive. He's just in a severe coma. But the Radiant has its own mission, and it wants to stop whatever this invasion is that is coming to Earth. And if the user is not willing to stop it, it wants nothing to do with its user. And Nathan was struggling a little with that throughout this story. He's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to fight this war that you're telling me that I'm going to have to fight. But Marshall takes up the throne, and he decides he's just out for revenge. Wants to stop Radiant Red for almost killing his friend, possibly killing his friend. And that takes us to the end of volume 1 just about. I'm skipping over some details here, but I'm not going to go play by play of the whole thing. But in the final issue, like I said, it's Satomi's issue. The 6th issue of Radiant Black is really a Radiant Red issue almost. And we learn her origin story. She was newly engaged. Her fiance had a bit of a gambling addiction. And it got to the point where they were about to lose their house. And one night she saw a shooting star, and it burst. And the 4 different colors we see here, the black, pink, red, and yellow. And the red one hit her, and she got her powers. And that is when she's like, you know what? I could use this power to get some money, to save my house, to save my fiance's debt. So she begins robbing banks to pay off her debts. Not the nicest way to go about it, but she's in a bit of a dark situation here with her fiance's issues. The fiance was like, listen, don't worry about it, because she had offered to give up her college money, because she was going to go back to college to get her master's, but her fiance is like, no, save that money, that's for you, I want you to go back. But one day she goes to check her account, and it's at 0, and she can't go to college. So that's when she begins robbing banks. So on to volume 2, we found out at the end of volume 1, because Marshall does track her down and they begin fighting, but it's quickly broken up by Radiant Pink and Yellow. Radiant Pink is Ava, who's an online game streamer, and Radiant Yellow is Wendell George, who's a bit older. He's considered an elderly man who works at Best Buy as a manager. We learn about Wendell's and Ava's origin stories in volume 2. But we go on to volume 2, and throughout volume 2 there's a couple of recurring villains. there's a sound villain, a couple of random ones there, and Marshall goes back to save Nathan. Nathan's in a coma for quite a while, and he finally gets pissed off to the point where they're in the hospital. They're about to pull Nathan's feeding tube, and he's about to be considered dead. And he keeps having these dreams, these visions, almost hallucinations of Nathan. And he's like, I never knew that. He's like, he had a dream about a section of Nathan's book that he was writing that he didn't even read. And he's like, all right, the Radiant read that though, because it was attached to Nathan when he wrote that. So in volume 2, it's really Marshall dealing with a ton of depression. And then he kind of goes into wherever the Radiants are from. It's almost like a hell. I don't know how to explain it. But he goes in there and they're like, you're not going to survive this. You're not going to survive this unless you know the truth. And he finds Nathan's consciousness in this mysterious realm, whatever it is. And it gets to the point where he has to admit to himself that he was just angry at himself for not leaving his town and trying like Nathan did. Marshall never really got to follow his dream. He opened a video. He's working at a video store that's not even his. It just feels like he's gone nowhere. Throughout volume 2, you see him sitting on his stoop, and these high school kids just walk by every day, just picking on him, calling him names, just calling him a bum, really. Marshall's just kind of self-loathing of himself. But it all comes to a point here. We have our main villain that they're all fighting, and we didn't really get his name yet, though. I don't know who he is, this mysterious powered guy that wants the Radiance for himself. But Marshall does trap him in the realm as well when a giant robot arm reaches out of his chest. I don't know what this robot is yet. We're going to get more answers, I'm sure, in later volumes, which I will be covering. But so far, I haven't even touched every plot point in this. There's a lot going on here. But it's just so much to take in. I'm really enjoying it. Really, it's just absolutely incredible storytelling. There's so much going on. The artwork is great. Let me show you that. I've been talking here the whole time and you've been looking at covers here. But just look at the action that's going on in these comics. There's the villain that I was talking about. But, yeah, here's when they're going to that whole realm. Here's the robot dude. Here's a look at the villain again when he's forced to help him out in that realm. Just some really awesome art. The colors pop. Like I said, like the end of this one followed Radiant Red. The end of this one follows Yellow and Pink. We learned that Pink was struggling with herself. She was about to host a subscribe-a-thon on Twitch to get a bunch of subs when her cat destroys her mic, and she goes to a Best Buy and she runs into the Radiant Yellow, and he's like, I can help you fix your mic. And he takes her out for a walk and she's having this breakdown. Her girlfriend dumps her because she's like, listen, you're never there for me when I need you. And her girlfriend's trying to do more business and focus on her thing while she's doing her gaming, which nothing against that. I mean, that's cool. I'm a big gamer myself. But her girlfriend's kind of like, yeah, that doesn't work for me. So she gets dumped and she goes back to the Best Buy. She's like, listen, I really need this microphone. And she's like, my day's terrible. So Wendell, the Radiant Yellow, is like, listen, come with me. I got to show you something. And she kind of gives a whole spiel about how she wants to do something better for the world. And he's like, all right, this is real. So he takes her into this abandoned shop, and the pink radiance just floating there. And she's like, what is this? He's like, well, I had a vision of you, and that I would bring you here, and you would take this and become the Radiant Pink. And she takes it. She gets her teleporting powers. His abilities are to see the future. Pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, everyone has different abilities. Radiant Black has gravity. Red has the ability to absorb mass. Pink is teleportation, and yellow is future sight. Really cool stuff. I can't wait to see where the series goes. There's just so much to read. The next thing I'm going to be reading is Radiant Red and Inferno Girl Red, because I believe that's the order for this first part of the Massiveverse. I know Cowl is a prequel series that is connected to this. It's mentioned in here, the figures, the heroes, the movie for them. It became canon later on in the series. So I'm going to read that somewhere in the middle, I think. I don't know quite when, but I will be covering that as well. So be sure to pick up Radiant Black and jump into the Massiveverse if you haven't yet, because I'm absolutely hooked. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed.